discussion on school safety initiatives.
One of the things that we wanted to talk about as we enter this board retreat was the things that we have done and the things that we need to look forward to enhance the safety of our school buildings. And you know, we've got, this is kind of a piggyback on potentially some of the things that we will discuss later on in the agenda on future bond projects. And that's why I want Sean here for this discussion as well, is because we've done a lot of things and we've tried to document those things and share those with the community. But more probably needs to be done, and we need to have an ongoing discussion about it. One of the things that, you know, just kind of rehashing some of the things that we have done. What was it, 4 years ago, we put in the card readers?
At least.
Yeah, and so we have secured the buildings with the card readers and keeping our buildings locked and trying to be more diligent with that. I won't tell you that every time the building is locked down completely, but it is a lot better. And with Dee being here too, we can talk. I may have him talk a little bit about what we've done with just the recent bond projects to enhance security as well. We are adding. We've added 2 SROs to the district in the 6 years that I've been here, with the addition of another SRO for this year that will be dedicated to Charter Oak. So we now have 4 SROs to cover what we will have is 7 buildings with students in them. So that's a part of this. We've had video capabilities before, but not anywhere near the technology that we have installed with the bond projects and some of the things that we've done this summer. In addition to that, 2 years ago, we had the Office of Homeland Security and Oklahoma School Security Institute do a study of our buildings. And we have implemented a lot of their recommendations, and that's you can see the wealth of information here, and I can share this with you electronically. I prefer not to print it for everyone, but one of the things that we've done, and this was a recommendation out of here, and there's several things that we've done from these recommendations, but we now have numbers on all of the exterior doors of our buildings. That is so that we can communicate with first responders of where a trouble area might be so that they can gain access. We make all of our first responders have access to our cards. We provide those to them so that the electronic locks, they can gain access to the building. We also have, on most of our buildings, I believe we have Knox boxes where the hard keys are located. But the numbering of the doors, we're going to number, and this summer we're working on this, placing numbers on the inside of those doors as well, so that the people, if they're inside and there's an issue going on outside, they can let the people, they know what the door number is, so they can communicate by cell phone or however with first responders about which door is where they're behind. The other thing that we're working on, and Cody's hoping to accomplish this by sometime in the first semester, the maps that are placed inside the school, inside the classrooms, where we show where we're going for fire escape or for areas of shelter in case of a tornado. We're placing the door numbers on those maps as well, so the teachers will have access to know where what door number is where, as we try to provide safety and security for our buildings. Dee, you want to talk a little bit about the camera system and what we have in place there?
Okay. One of the things with our bond money that we did is we updated all of our existing camera software so that we can now go back and find something just almost immediately. It has helped more than once already. Once, and actually my truck got backed into in the high school parking lot, and we found it about that quick. I mean, those things happen. We've secured the outsides of the buildings. We have taken over and leveraged our existing cameras, put them on the new system. They're still the old analog, and we'll just replace them as they die with the new IP cameras. I'm in the process right now of tweaking it just a little bit, of a hole that we missed here or something like that. But we can now, I can't remember exactly how many cameras, but I have too many to fit on one screen at the high school. So we've covered a lot of area, mainly adding to the outside is one of the big things we've done. So we can see what's going on outside the buildings and secure our schools a whole lot better. And we also have given the SROs the access to all those cameras. So even though an SRO is not sitting in physically a school, he can still be monitoring that school and see what's going on. So,
You might talk a little bit about the remote access that's available with this new system.
yeah, the new system, we are setting up a remote access. I could actually turn around and pull it up on my iPad. It has the ability to send out alarms. We can set those so that if something happens, it can notify us and say, hey, you know, something's going on, which it could also notify the police. It's just an app that we put on, so that's been a big help to us also.
Dee and I went to a meeting, what was that, 2 years ago maybe?
Probably.
That lunch and learn thing, where they demonstrated the capabilities of this, and that's when I decided we needed to pursue that, and we've made that a priority. One of the things that sometimes building administrators want cameras on the inside, and they forget that the outside is potentially more important, because we want to monitor who is in the building, who comes in, who goes out, and who is outside the building, especially when the building is secure. And so we've made a focus with all of our buildings that the camera placement of what we've added to be on the entrances, so that we can better monitor who is standing outside our buildings and who's coming in. And so with that, we've done a lot, and that's kind of a long story short. We've done a lot. We have more to do. With the things that everyone in school business has dealt with regard to school safety, we know that it's very important that the staff, they're the gatekeepers, and getting them where they are comfortable with what we have is very important. So one of the things that you know, let's be honest, there's also an issue of cost, and in fact, there was an article that the other day in a publication for school administrators that mentioned, can schools afford to be safe? And balancing that is a huge challenge and a dilemma for all of us. You know, one of the things when we went through the budget cuts in 2016, I never suggested that we trim back our school resource officers, because I think that in order to have adequate education, parents, students, and staff must feel safe first. So one of the things that Travis and I talked a little bit about this, and talked about what we could do to enhance security, we kicked around what is the cost if we add additional security to our buildings? Because right now, we have a shared SRO between the high school and I believe that's Cotterell, the junior high and Central, and then Guess and Fogarty. And so they share buildings. And what would the cost be to place a person dedicated to security inside each of those buildings and reduce the shared person? And so I've got some costs here, and it shows what we have, what our current costs are, and what it would cost to take this further. And this is not, we're not proposing this, and I've got others.
I had a question.
Uh-huh.
So are there viewing screens in each office, main office and stuff that are on all the time for them to see? Is it the doors?
They're on the individual computers. They're not necessarily on a screen. So there's a little bit of a privacy type issue if you put them in the main office. So in the principal's office or on a secretary's screen where they're the ones who can view it.
But so they're always looking before they answer a door is my question.
They should be, yes.
Yeah, and that's part of the card reader. It has a camera on it.
Right.
That's not with the security system. It's a separate deal that the secretary, before they buzz them in, they're supposed to be looking at that at that camera view.
There's a piece of software on their computer that goes with that A phone. And so when someone pushes the button, it pulls up a picture right there.
Thank you.
Are all the outdoor security cameras you got at all sites?
Yes.
And is just some of the sites just have the front door, or are they?
No, they're all the sites are covered now.
Completely covered?
We should have the perimeter of every site covered.
Okay.
And that's all what we've done with bond funds. It's really beneficial for me. I have that access to all of the sites at my computer in my office, so it's very beneficial. And the other part that Dee mentioned, when you have an incident, you might scour 8 hours worth of video. This will show the areas where there is movement, and you can go directly to there, and it saves a ton of time. It's already been very beneficial for Guthrie Police Department with an incident that we had happen last spring at the high school. Okay, so what you have in front of you, I talked with Sheriff Devereaux and with Chief Swager at Guthrie Police Department, and talked about what the cost would be to basically have additional security at every site. And it varies. It varies with the qualifications of who you place in there. There is low-cost private security. There is high-cost private security. And then when you talk about law enforcement that are off-duty, it amounts to kind of a market of what the market will bear on what they will be willing to work for. So I included the high cost of law enforcement, the low cost of law enforcement, and the high cost of private security, which is about the same, and then the private security low cost. And so what that looks like, is private security high cost is essentially an armed person with cleat certification, and they are more professional, but they are still, it's still private security. They are not a commissioned law officer. The private security low cost may or may not be, they will generally be cleat certified. They may or may not have a weapon. They may or may not have as much training as what the high cost would be. And then of course, the difference in law enforcement, it's basically a market, what the market will bear on what they are willing to do. And so it varies greatly, as you can see, but and then I also want to make sure that the board understands and appreciates what we currently spend, and that's down below there. The guests and the high school, the cost of those SROs went from $32,000 to $36,000 this year, but we had not had an increase in those costs since we started the program. The city of Guthrie pays for and absorbs the cost of the SRO at the junior high. And so with that and the addition at Charter Oak, we have a $102,000 investment annually on what we spend on our SROs. And the one of the things that is a little bit different, you'll notice that Charter Oak is a little bit less expensive than the guest or the high school. I attribute that to obviously the sheriff, it'll be a deputy sheriff from the Logan County Sheriff's Office. They are non-union, and the Guthrie Police Department is unionized, and so the costs are higher there. And you know, we have a great relationship with both offices. They are very helpful and receptive to us, and I'm sure this will be a new experience with Charter Oak and our work with the Logan County Sheriff's Office. But they are also working with Mulhall and Coyle to provide an SRO there. But they're also the SROs that are going to Mulhall and Coyle will be subject to call-outs in that area as well, unlike our deputy at Charter Oak. They will be dedicated solely to that building. And that's not to say if we have a major event they won't leave, but that happens. An example of that was when Deputy Wade, the incident happened there. Even Guthrie PD pulled their people out because of what was going on. That being said, we still had patrols that increased around our school until they had a person of interest isolated. And so we wanted to make sure that we kept our school secure there. All that being said, I know I've thrown a lot at you right now about what we've done and what we are doing and what it might cost. Bottom line is, it would, in order to add the high-end law enforcement there, off-duty, we're talking essentially doubling our costs to do that, and then it kind of scales back from there.
So the contract law enforcement, would we have to administer that program? Would we have to insure those individuals? How does that work?
You know, they would be individual contractors with Guthrie Public Schools, and they would bear their own insurance costs and things like that. We have done that before. Yeah, the high school, when I got here, we had a contract person that worked at the high school, and they had a lot more limited hours than what we're talking about here. But what it amounts to, the downside to this is we don't always have the same person, and they don't have the SRO training, which is very specific on issues with regard to school safety. And that's, the SRO training is very beneficial, and so that's why if we look at wanting to add additional SROs, then that's a whole other issue, because then the police department or the sheriff's department will have to add staff, and we're only going to employ them for 9 months, so they're bearing the cost of them for the remainder of the year too.
Do they have the staff to provide that?
It would be off duty, and it would be up to them on whether or not they would have staff willing to. But Damon and I talked about if we want to do this, let's give him some lead time to staff up. And this discussion originally was planned for our retreat in June, and that preparation, but nothing. I've spoken with Chief Swager and Sheriff Devereaux both, and nothing has really changed on the numbers. But obviously the calendar, we're at a different spot on the calendar.
But we would require SRO training for whomever if we went with this plan.
Well, we could, or we could just have security.
So that was a question I had. Is the SRO training as necessary at the elementary level?
I think it's probably more necessary at the elementary level than it is at the high school level, because the things that we deal with at the elementary level are different than the things we deal with at the high school level. In many cases at the elementary level, and when Carmen gets here, she can speak to this too. We deal with a lot of custody issues where parents may or may not have custody rights or visitation rights or whatever, and they show up at our school. We deal with sometimes the issues that are going on at home are affecting the child and the behavior at school, and law enforcement provides a method to identify some issues going on if the DHS needs to be contacted, or Child Protective Services, or any kind of thing like that. At the high school level, we have sometimes, I'll just say it, we have some criminal activity with students that we have to deal with. We have students that are in need of protective services from maybe a bad situation at home, and we have, and the abuse opportunities are from pre-K through 12, and so those are some of the things that our SROs deal with. And I can't remember when, Sharon, you asked one time what they do. And I can't remember if I sent the report for 1 month to all of you, but you can see, and that was a pretty typical month. You can see what they do, and you can see their value. Now, one of the things that I'll mention, because I've talked with other superintendents that have SROs or at least some kind of law enforcement in every building. The traffic and the activity is much less and much different in the elementaries, and some of the superintendents I've spoken to, at least one in particular, questioned the need and value of them in the elementaries all the time, and whether or not they are as sharp because there's not as much going on. So that's another thing to think about with this. At the end of the day, I think we all want our schools to be safe. What that looks like is really what we're having for discussion today, probably.
When I was at the convention a couple weeks ago, Colonel Oliver North spoke, and of course he's the president of the NRA. Notwithstanding anything about that, in light of everything the country has come to with safety and everything in schools, the NRA is now offering not only They'll come in and check the schools, I mean, free. They'll send somebody, a team, to check your security issues at your school. But they're offering grants to school districts to help, you know, defray some of the cost for securing the schools. And I don't know if that's, and I hadn't called them, but I mean, I've got a number and everything. I'd be interested, if you would want, if anybody would want me to, I'd be interested in just, you know, if you want me to, call them and just see what would involve if we could get some grant money that would help us, you know, take care of some of these costs without, and there's no ties to anything. He said there's no ties to the organization or anything as far as you have to be this or that. But they're trying to help across the country, you know, take care of some of the costs of the security and stuff in schools. So I don't know if that'd be something you'd be interested in finding out more about.
I'm glad you mentioned that. There's also, when Carmen gets here, there's some federal money available this year to help defray some of the costs too, that we're going to look at to code how we're paying for possibly the SRO, Charter O. The problem with federal money is you can't supplant. In other words, you can't pay for use the federal money to pay for something that you've been doing before. It has to be something you're adding to, and that's something that I know we kicked around a little bit. You know, the idea that we could enhance the security of our buildings with, and as long as, if the rain will stop and we can get out to Charter Oak, you'll see the difference of the entrance there versus what we have in our current buildings. And that, those are the kinds of things that we want to do, look at as we talk about modifications to our buildings as well, to try and make them more secure. You know, the grants, years ago when we really started SRO programs, most of the school districts used federal funds to pay for that, and the federal funds gradually went away, and school districts were not obviously going to not secure their buildings with an SRO, so the schools started picking up the cost of that. But some school districts did away with it too, and you know, obviously with the way the world is today and the school shootings and things like that, there are other things that we can have a discussion about, short of placing an officer in every building, and those are ongoing. In fact, Dana and I were talking about some kits that we could place in there to stop bleeding, and we'll probably look at some of that this fall. And he and I have been in discussions with that, placing them in locations kind of like where we place our AEDs and stuff like that.
Get bond funds pay for security,
They can pay for capital improvements for security,
contracts.
but no, you couldn't. Yeah, you couldn't pay for the cost of an SRO.
But it could pay for modifications to our buildings,
Yeah.
entrances.
You know, one of the things that they have done in Ponca City that I recommended before I left is they have added entrances that are secure to some of the older buildings there. And, you know, I think of, you look at Central, you look at Fogarty, you look at Cotterell, each one of them are so different that what that looks like if we were to make those modifications, you know, it would all be different scenarios. But then that kind of gets into the dilemma that we have of how much money do we put into the buildings and what are their future for, and is it a worthwhile expenditure to look at a modification to Cotterell if it's the next thing that we do to replace the building too. And so one of the things that I go back to on making Cotterell more secure is the removal and no longer having students in the portable classrooms. This goes way back to when Damon was police chief, and he and I were walking through that building one day, and we looked at those portable classrooms and just how secure they are for a bullet penetration, and they're really not. And so getting and then you get into with those portables the areas to hide and things like that to keep that site secure. So in my mind, Cotterell will become more secure when we do remove those portables and stop using them. And that's again a byproduct of opening Charter Oak and being able to do that.
Well, appreciate that. The agenda item for discussion, there's no action today. But I was curious on what the other board members thought, because you know my opinion, I believe we need to enhance security. So I would like at some point in the near future bring an agenda item, action item to the board related to enhancing security. So your feedback at this point would be appreciated. I don't know necessarily where the board member stands. We've had the discussion on arming staff. I think it's preferable to have trained professionals, but it is expensive.
I think we're probably all on board on adding it. It's going forward cost-wise. And right now we're financially doing pretty good, where I feel like we could probably implement this. But then if we had another hiccup like in 2016, then you had to reevaluate. But I don't think there would be one person in this room that would probably is well needed.
Well, I like what Sharon had to say. I mean, she brought to the table an alternative in addition to adding the security officers, but to look at our schools and see what could be done. I mean, there might be things that we could change, that we could get some grant money for, that would significantly increase the security of our entrances on our schools. I mean, because like you said, we've got several that, I mean, in all reality, we know are not going to be replaced in any near future. And so we're just at the point where we've got to make a decision, and we need to make a plan and try to move forward with it, for the better of our district. So,
Sean, what do you think on the buildings that in order to make them more secure with secure entrances, like take Fogarty for example? What does that look like in that building?
Well, we do secure entrances all the time. That's like you did at Ponca. That's a very common project we do. We go back and the older buildings. The complicated thing at Fogarty or any other school like Central is it's not necessarily just as simple as adding a second set of doors, because like at Central the office is not by the entrance. So now you're looking at not only moving office furniture but cutting a hole in the wall at another door to kind of create that secure vestibule path, but then you're relocating intercom systems and fire alarm and those kind of controls things that have been set up over time in the offices. So it can kind of snowball a little bit in some of those instances. Unless, like at Central, you could move everybody to come around on the front side, but then that's another safety issue. Now you're on 33. So each side is going to be different, but that's where it gets more complicated, is because you end up, because to truly do, I think, a secure entrance the right way, you need to have the office right there. You need to have somebody sitting at a desk all day who can not only look at the camera to see who's at the door, but I can see personally, those cameras, those AI phones are great, you can look and see, but you don't see their whole body. If somebody's holding something down by their side or those kinds of things. If they're sitting at the desk, you can kind of look through the door, you can kind of see. And then like Charter Oak, we kind of have sort of the man trap. So you let them in, but you only let them in the vestibule. Then you have to let them in again actively into the office. And so you kind of create that second step. Well, if you're not sitting there to look at that, then I think that creates a little issue. So this kind of snowballs a little bit. It can in these schools can be just a little different.
Central looks like it's the worst to fix the problem.
You'd have to completely move that over, and sometimes it's not as simple as going in. You have to do an addition. Central, some of those where you come in, the stairs are closed, or there's a bathroom right there, and so if you create a vestibule, the bathroom doors in the vestibule, and so you're going to have to add on to the building, which can be done. But then sort of buildings like Central, which is a more historic building, do you want to, you kind of look through those kinds of things too. What does that look like? How does it affect the rest of the parking or the playground there? But it can get complicated. But it is a project that does, like in Ponca, happen all the time.
Yeah. And aesthetically, if you build on and place a glass entrance out front, there's a vestibule before you do that, storefront, it really does change the look of the building. And so you fight that battle, and it's really tough with buildings that were not designed that way.
I would say, everything you talked about this morning, other districts talk about and do similar things. What we have found and doing this kind of discussion and other committees and safety committees is there's no right answer. There's no answer yet. Nobody has the answer. Nobody really knows. It seems to evolve and move, and so I think doing something is better than nothing. I think doing these activities and steps are important. Sometimes it's if you're keeping honest people honest a little bit. You can't truly secure your school. You have glass doors and somebody's going to prop a door up. You do the secure vestibule, but somebody's doing harm. They're not going to come through the front door. They're going to come through the back door. So I think all the steps you're doing, certainly, one, you want to mitigate up front, at least make people think, okay, there's an SRO officer here, there's a secure entrance, this is going to be a harder target, I'll go somewhere else. And then having those things in place, like the signage in the rooms, is very important. You can put signs on all your exterior doors and say this is entrance A or entrance B, so when emergency responders show up, they know where to come into the building as quickly as possible. So, but I would say there's really, I've not heard of anybody have the perfect solution yet. It's sort of evolving.
Cotterell kind of bothers me the most only because it's the distance school. The rest of our neighborhood located. With the fourth grade, I don't know how their discipline is compared. Before we had little kids there, overall, they act pretty good. They're still excited to be at school. But do you think that's going to change with having like a fourth grader there, or that we're going to need more local security instead of the time frame it is to get there?
Well, talking with, it's a great question. I've had discussions with Guthrie Police Department about where they have their officers. And there is generally 24/7 one on the west side of the Cottonwood. So if there is an incident, now when we share with the high school SRO being the one that typically goes to Cotterell if there's an incident. That being said, if there's an issue and they need a quicker response than what they can come from the high school, that's not to say that the SRO at the junior high can't run over there real quick to be there as well. And I know we've had times that the patrol officer will respond and can be there faster than SRO if we have an incident. But in all honesty, I'll tell you that I believe we probably have more issues. We've had historically more issues in Cotterell because of custody with parents than we have any of our other buildings. Because, there are family situations that when they're that young, they're still trying to work out with the family. And And I think now we're going to disperse that throughout the district, which will radically change that dynamic. The thing about the population in Cotterell has been that all of the pre-K and about half of the kindergarten population, those parents are learning what school is in many cases. And so that's a huge learning curve for your entire group of patrons that are going to be in that building. And it just has worked out that many of the family issues that have surfaced have been more acute at that building than they've been at others. So we've had probably more issues with at Cotterell because of that. And you know, I want to think that fourth graders are not going to have the discipline issues that obviously junior high kids are, high school kids. And that's why with who we have, you know, we've got an SRO at Guess, and we've had 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, but as they get older, there are more issues with the 6th grade